around staring at each other saying, I don't know, man. I don't know what's going on. They fired a coach. They made a trade now, and
what about that trade?
I'm
haggling for Pearson.
Tanner Pearson. Yeah, I am an unabashed Tanner Pearson fan.
Me too.
I have fought with countless people on the internet about the value that he has to the team. But the reality is, the day they signed Ilya Kovalchuk, they painted themselves into a corner where somebody had to be traded.
Look at Jason's smile, by the way.
I'm not smiling because of what's happening. I'm smiling because when they made that pickup, when they signed him, I told Jay, and I went on here and I said, I just got a bad feeling about this. This is something where they just literally mortgaged the team for one guy with all that money, hoping he's going to be the savior, and he's been not, let's put it this way, not the savior.
Well,
I mean, it's...
Yeah, he hasn't. You're not wrong. But just for cap purposes,
right.
When they brought him in with Doughty's raise, with Iafallo and Kempe needing a secondary contract, they didn't. I mean, I think if everybody were healthy today, I think they have between 100 and 200,000 in cap space, maybe less. So
that's tight.
Yeah, somebody had to go. I mean, so even in the best of times, even if they were in first place and a serious cup contender, maybe this trade happens at the draft instead of today. But this trade was going to it didn't necessarily have to be Tanner Pearson, but it was going to be Muzzin or Martinez or Toffoli or Pearson or Carter or somebody in that mid salary range.
But you're still breaking up that chemistry of that core that was there with you 4 years ago.
Yeah, and the bad start accelerated the timeline. Prior to the trade was that they were going to feel desperate and that the trade was going to be made out of desperation and that they were going to do some sort of swing for fences, save the season type trade. I don't think that's what this is. This is just haggling for Pearson is a momentary swap. It's a lateral move, but it opens up your cap space in the summer so that now you're not operating from a position of weakness. You actually can evaluate other future trades and decide, well, if we do want to go get Nylander, what is it worth to us to give up, et cetera?
Well, let me ask you this question. Obviously, the quick injury, you couldn't predict that.
Right.
So, but my other question is, let's go back in time if we can, and maybe June. Okay, June, July. And looking at your players and who you have in your farm system in Ontario, who would you, or what would you have done differently, do you think? Is there someone there, or two guys there that, or maybe 10 guys that could have made a Kovalchuk salary, but who are maybe the top 2 or 3 guys that you would have probably said, you know what, a smarter move for just cap, and also if we're in a partial rebuild, what would be a better way to do this rather than signing a free agent and rolling the dice?
I wouldn't have done anything.
Okay, fair enough.
You either have to have faith that guys like Kempe, Amadio, Velarde, Kupari, whatever youth you have in your system, you either have to have faith that your scouts and your development staff can turn them into contributing NHL players, or you have to roll the dice and risk the season that we're having right now. And my preference has always been not to roll the dice. Right. One of the brilliant yet boring elements of the Lombardi era was it was a counting cards math game. We're going to outshoot the other team every night. We're going to outpossess them every night, and over time, things will play out in our favor more often than not. And that can be boring, I suppose, but personally, I don't. I've spent far too long watching hockey to care about what's boring and what isn't. I just want wins more than losses.
Well, and that's the thing right now. You're looking at a very dire situation for the Kings, and this season is, in my mind, over for them. Their playoff hopes are essentially gone. I mean, for that to happen, something tremendous would have to show itself right now. And what I saw last night and what I saw earlier in the season, I chalked it up to it's early in the season.
Sure.
But last night, what I saw was a bunch of guys who are not capable of keeping up with these younger, faster teams. It really looks like Brown and Kopitar and Doughty and even, well, I mean, not so much, but I mean, like, Kempe looks great. He's a young guy, but he doesn't have the chemistry to make this thing happen. What's up? I mean, where did they miss over the summer that they come back in such a wretched shape?
I mean, I have heard outlandish theories that I will not repeat because they're just
Come on.
no, I mean they're just absurd, right? They're I might as well be telling you that aliens abducted all 20 guys and replaced them with replicants. That's how
I could believe that.
But
I'm going.
Sorry.
no, but that's the point. Is that while I won't repeat the things I heard, they are so absurd, and yet they're just as plausible as anything else.
I think the alien theory is on the table still. Right?
I agree. It is like
Yeah.
replaced by these.
There's no emotion.
doppelgangers.
It's like Invasion of Body Snatchers. There's no emotion with
I
these
mean,
guys.
it's weird.
Yeah.
It was weird watching it last night. I mean, I wasn't there for the 2-1. I wish I had seen the Kempe goal because we talk about him. And like I said, I spoke to Jim Fox on Friday. I was just like, "What's up?" He said, they did the exercise testing. They're all in great shape. They're like everything should be clicking, and none of it is. And he said, they don't have. They don't have any time for this to get better. It needs to get better now, and I don't know. It's dire.
Well, the worst part is, maybe 2 weeks ago, you needed a miracle for the season to turn around, and so you fire the coach.
Right.
You bring Brown back. You do whatever. At this point, you actually need 2 miracles. You need the Kings to turn around and suddenly develop into a contender, and then you need another team that's currently a contender to completely fall off the map.
Right. They've got to have a blowout.
It's not enough for the Kings to do well. At least one, if not 2 or 3 teams ahead of them in the standings. Vancouver's got to collapse. Vegas has to continue being bad. Anaheim has over there, Vegas fan. Anaheim has to fail. Vancouver has to fail. Calgary has to flounder. They're just too far to the hole.
So I keep going back to 3 years ago when Columbus went on that unbelievable run of 16 wins. And it's rare, obviously it's such a big deal, it was so rare, but is this team capable at some point of doing that? Because if not, like you said, Jay, I think they're done. That's the problem.
Well, I mean, that's a great question because if you look at who they have there, they should definitely be capable of
Talent-wise,
great
sure.
things. I mean, they're
On paper,
stacked.
yeah.
I mean, I love these players. I mean, Tyler Toffoli. I mean, it was great having Tanner Pearson. He was one of my faves. And then this Kempe. I mean, these Iafallo is exciting. Martinez. They have talent galore, but something isn't right this year. It's really and you can't chalk it up to injuries like when the Ducks came out of the gates. They had lots of injuries. They still look like they're playing injured, but they're making it work somehow. Somehow the Ducks have managed. They took out the Preds last night or 2 nights ago. They're going to play. I think they have. I don't know who they have tonight, but then they have Toronto on Friday, and I'm going to go watch that game. Toronto looks great, by the way. That team.
So here's another question I have then. Is this a situation where, well before the February trade deadline, they start becoming like Duke and sell? I mean, is this something where they just break up that team and just say,
Nice reference.
thank you?
Duke and Duke.
Sorry. I think they are. Look, if this were a business that didn't rely on fans to generate revenue, yeah, I think it's easier to take conservative is not the right word, but to say, yeah, we have to save the future, so let's go. It's not that difficult to turn a franchise around in under 3 years if you just commit to a complete teardown. The problem is, if you did that, you risk losing a significant portion of fan revenue.
But it's also LA, and then it's just one of those things. It's LA fans are the most fickle fans I think in all of sports. I think you would agree.
Yes, they are.
If there's a team wavering, I mean, even when, again, to jump sports a bit, when the Lakers were not doing as well at all, and
Right.
the Clippers were better, suddenly everybody in LA is a Clippers fan and no one's a Lakers fan. Or at least change the color of the seats because the red seats on TV wouldn't show as many fans, but they changed them over to black colored seats so they would blend in more with the crowd.
Right.
I mean, it's something that, you're right, it's a business from that standpoint, but LA is a unique situation and they lose them. The question is, will they be able to get them back? Because that's what happened when Wayne left. The interest left until 2012. That's the reality of the majority of these fans.
But even then,
Not the hardcore like you.
No,
I'm saying there's that core, but the casual fan.
but I think everybody forgets the early 2000. I won't call it a renaissance. The early 2000 blip. Gretzky leaves in '96,
Right.
'97, and '98 are a bit of a blight. Staples Center opens in '99, I think.
Springsteen opened it, by the way.
Yeah,
in May.
Kings make the playoffs in 2000. They get swept by Detroit.
What was it? You kind of
That's fine.
mumbled.
They get swept by Detroit, but the
Thank you.
following year
You mumbled it a
is
bit.
the
I wanted to make
revenge
sure.
year where
Yes.
with the Stunner at Staples and the Frenzy on Figueroa.
Yes.
And in those 2 years when they had Palfi and Robitaille and,
Right.
and Potvin, the building was packed. People had Felix
Yes.
Felix the Cat dolls.
Right.
Like it doesn't take that long to do the turnaround. In 2 or 3 years, if you go back and listen to my podcast, I was screaming at Calgary and Vancouver because they refused to commit to a rebuild. And I would say, why are you holding on to Mika Kiprusoff? Why are you holding on to Jarome Iginla? Why are you holding on to these guys? Your team is garbage. Your team isn't winning.
Right.
Every time you go out and get another Matt Stajan, no offense to Matt Stajan, I'm sure he's a lovely human being. You're just prolonging the inevitable,
Yes.
and you're dragging down the overall product of the NHL.
Yes.
Somebody's getting into the playoffs because they have 6 games against your team, and you haven't figured out that you're not a contender.
Right.
I don't know that we're at that point with the Kings yet, but my fear is sitting through a season where we're just going out and acquiring a Matt Stajan, and we don't quite realize.
But that's the change in the NHL. The days of going out and getting a high-priced, hired gun, unless you're really in the playoff mix, or you need a little bit of a boost, which is again why it still boggles my mind that St. Louis got rid of Stastny last year in the middle of a playoff run.
Yeah.
It just
Oh,
shows how
absolutely.
inept the St. Louis management is, but
Well-
that's why I think then maybe going after Kovalchuk would have been made sense if the Kings were in a wild card or whatever, needed a bit of a bump to try to roll the dice. But I don't, what do you do at this point? Where do you go?
Well, why don't we look at what the Rangers did last year, and let's look at the Kings as compared to the New York Rangers, because I
Right.
feel like there are similarities right now with these two teams. Well, not the Rangers today, but Rangers at the end of the season last year when they flushed it and got rid of JT Miller and McDonough and Grabner, and I mean they literally went for a wholesale change, like big time. And are the Kings at that point? I mean, they have great players that might do better if they weren't all together at the same, with the same kind of old, they're still playing like they're the 2012 or 2014 team, but their bodies, this is me just watching them as like
Right.
a human being watching other people. Their bodies don't work like they did back then. They look really different. Kopitar looks really different. Dustin Brown looks like a shadow of his former self, and same with even Jeff Carter, who I think is one of the greatest players. He doesn't have that hop that he used to have. I mean, Carter used to be just deadly, and he's pretty easily stopped by some of these teams now.
So here's my only pushback on that. Last season, Anze Kopitar was an MVP candidate.
Best season of his life.
And the moments that stood out to me the most were the 3-on-3 play, because when you're doing a 3-on-3, there's 4 less bodies on the ice. You're skill against skill. There's all the space in the world, and you could really see.
I'm really sorry, guys, but I'm just noticing that this is stopped.
That's not good.
Wait, where did it stop?
This is card full.
Oh, I have another card. Do you have one?
Not on the person now.
Well, I have another one.
I've had that problem with that same thing, and sometimes you have to reformat the disc. Like sometimes in the process.